When it comes to feeding our reefs, the options out there can feel limitless. So today we're gonna go through some of those options. On the table here, we got some frozen foods, refrigerated, dry foods, as well as some algae options.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about each one, why you might wanna use each one for your reef, pros and cons of each food group, as well as common mistakes to avoid, such as overfeeding that can lead to nutrient spikes, as well as algae issues and hungry fish. So I think we should dive right into it.
Yep, let's go. So frozen food's definitely the most popular food, but it can be pretty overwhelming to pick because there's so many varieties, right? So what are some of the pros to the frozen food options?
Well, one of the pros is there is so many varieties. So you have food for every fish that you're gonna keep. So looking at the table here, we've got like Cyclops and Calanus, which are really good for your smallmouth fish. So your seahorses, Anthias, and other smallmouth fish that are gonna need really small food particles. It's also good for your corals, which is really good. So you're feeding your tank and your corals at the same time.
Great side.
Everything is gonna be happy and healthy, helps you be extended. You got some larger or medium-sized fish, squid or like mysis, brine shrimp, spirulina brine shrimp, and that kind of stuff is gonna be really good. I prefer spirulina packed things because it has extra nutrition to them,
Right.
Which is really good for your fish and boosting immune system and overall health, coloration, all that kind of stuff. And then if you're keeping predator fish, you're gonna get things like krill. That's gonna be good for a predator that has teeth that need to be broken down that are gonna constantly grow. So I'm thinking like pufferfish where their teeth are just always growing, and if they don't have something hard to break it on, it's gonna overgrow,
Right.
like a pig with the tusk and everything. So it's not good overall, but frozen foods provide that variety for all of your fish, all of your corals.
But it's not all like sunshine and rainbows, right?
It's not.
There's some cons to it. It's pretty tedious to use and feed. You're gonna have to defrost it, so you gotta plan ahead. Make sure the food's fully defrosted when you feed it into the tank. Usually you don't wanna just throw the cube right in. And then another downside is that there's tons of liquid in these cubes. So if you have high phosphates or high nutrients, you probably don't wanna be adding excess nutrients into your tank, and that can be the cause of that. And then the last con for me is going to be, again, since it's frozen, when you defrost it, you can't just leave it defrosted. You're either gonna have to use it or throw it out because it will degrade really quickly and those proteins won't last.
Yeah, and if you refreeze it, those proteins are gonna break down right away. So then you lose out on all the benefit of the nutrition that the frozen food's gonna provide for your fish.
That's
so
right.
Don't make those mistakes and make sure that your fish are happy and healthy with the frozen foods. Pellets are another reef food staple when it comes to feeding your aquarium, specifically for your fish. There's a lot of different options out there, and if you have captive bred fish, it's probably be a really easy way to feed your reef.
That's right. Yeah, one of the biggest pros for me is that it's really easy. You can stick this in an auto feeder, or you can just sprinkle it onto the surface of the tank, and the fish will go crazy for it, especially captive bred fish in basically every hatchery, every farm. They're feeding something like this sustainable hatchery diet, so all those fish are very used to pellets. But those aren't the only pros. There's plenty more, right?
Yeah. Another big one is it comes in a variety of different sizes. So each pellet has a different granule size, which means that you can feed your fish from tiny little larval fish, if you're breeding clownfish, all the way up to full-grown adults, get them spawning.
Right.
Along with the different variety of sizes, pellets are super nutrient dense. So it's really easy to overfeed, which I think kind of ties into a con.
Absolutely.
So just think every little pellet that sinks to the bottom of the tank doesn't get eaten. That's a lot of extra nutrients adding to your tank. So be careful how much you feed, but being that they're granular, you can feed just a couple at a time and wait it out until your fish are done.
Yeah, great for skinny little fish that need to eat a lot more food. It's really another great pro is that it's a very economically friendly option. This is going to be your most budget friendly option, really. And they're not really as basic as you think. They're not just kind of compressed proteins. Some of them, like this TDO Chroma Boost, is coated in a coating that will release and feed your corals as well. So there's a lot of really interesting options when it comes to pellet food.
Yeah, they have coatings like the TDO and others will help boost coloration of your fish, especially the orange colors.
Yep.
So if you have like Oscars clownfish, Percula clownfish, Anthias especially, you can really bring out the extra oranges and reds out of them with feeding pellet foods. And they're not just for carnivores. There's also herbivorous options out there like the seaweed extreme pellets.
Right, like if you're on vacation, you need to put something in your fish feeder for your herbivores, the pellets are a great option. All right, let's talk about algae, like this one right here.
Yeah, we're not talking about green hair algae taking over your tank. We're talking about the algae that you're feeding your fish specifically for their nutrition and health benefits. So most popular, you're probably gonna recognize is nori. This comes in a bunch of different sheet sizes, different quantities. And you're gonna be feeding it on a veggie clip typically. So it's gonna require some extra tools to feed because you're not gonna just drop it in your tank. Unless you have those, I think the Two Little Fishies has the little nori flakes, which is unique. But
That's right.
Most people go with the sheet so that fish can actually graze and exhibit a natural behavior that they would out in the wild. But nori is not the only option out there. A lot of people don't actually feed the oliva or dolce, but this is a great way to vary their diet and give them some extra health benefits and immunity boosts with different foods.
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest pros is, like you said, exhibiting natural behaviors. They're going to go and graze. If your rocks have no algae on them, they won't be able to graze those, so they'll need somewhere to graze. So that's a great option for your tangs. But one of the downsides I've found is that it can get very messy. Tangs are kind of messy eaters. They like to pick and pull. And so I've found if you don't fold your nori up like this guy here, sometimes they can rip it off and it gets stuck on your overflow, can cause flooding, some other issues. So you want to be careful when you're feeding these guys. Definitely make sure it's in a secure location and make sure your fish actually like it. Sometimes they don't really like some of the reds or purple ones. So give a few options a try.
Yeah, try out a different varieties. And also just make sure that you're not overfeeding it. So if you only have 1 or 2 tanks, you don't need to feed the whole sheet. So you can feed just like a quarter of the sheet, fold it up really nice and put it on the clip. And I think I've also seen some other options for alternatives to clips out there. So there's algae grazers where you actually like roll it onto a device and then they can just graze the whole block. But just make sure you're not overfeeding because it is algae after all. So when it does break down in your tank, you're literally having algae break down to then feed more algae in their tank.
Yeah, so, and I think a lot of people kind of brush past the fact that most of these fish, a lot of these fish really need fiber in their diet.
Yeah.
And so this is a really good and easy way to give them that fiber. All right, so on to my favorite foods, the refrigerated foods. I'm definitely a little biased on these ones here. They're really, really easy to feed and they come in a lot of options for really picky eaters. That's the main reason I like to use them a lot.
Yeah, I like them because they don't need to be thawed like a frozen food. So it's a nice convenient option that's a blend between frozen as well as getting something that's ready and convenient to feed.
Right.
What else do you like about foods?
Like I said, the picky eaters, things like the ROE, the super eggs, or even the golden pods, these are great for your picky eaters as they're a little bit different than you'd say like a mysis or the traditional food like a pellet that you'd normally feed your fish. So if you get a new fish in and it's not eating, this is my go-to option for those picky eaters.
Yeah, I think they're a really solid option, especially with all the variety out there. Different fish are going to eat it. Also, a lot of different coral foods are available as refrigerated foods, especially from Reef Nutrition. But aside from all those really great aspects of it, I think the big downside is it's going to be kept in your fridge. So if you have family, I recommend keeping a separate mini fridge for just the refrigerated food because the food is going to give your fridge a fishy smell.
Definitely smells like fish food. Yes, you know, linger in there.
Spouse is probably not going to like that. Also being refrigerated, the other thing that you need to keep in mind is the shelf life. Because it's refrigerated and not frozen and not dry, it's gonna have a much shorter shelf life. So make sure that you're using it before the expiration date and not buying too much too far ahead of time. Spoiled food is not good for your fish. It's also gonna not be good for the smell of your house. So make sure you're keeping on top of that. What other cons are there with this?
Yeah, even though they are my favorite, it does come with a cost. Literally.
Yeah.
They're very expensive. Most refrigerated foods are quite expensive. If you have a really big tank like this guy behind us, you're probably not going to want to daily feed a refrigerated food option, but on nano tanks, it might be a great option for you. All right, so now that we understand the available options out there, obviously I'm a refrigerated foods guy, but Kyle, what is your favorite?
I'm a diehard frozen fish food fan. What's your favorite? Let us know in the comments.
Thanks for watching.